What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over several quick tips to hopefully help you play better in Fortnite's new Act 3 Overwatch update and the new Zero Build overhaul. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you would like to see more, comment down below which tip has helped you most with this update, and if you guys would like to use my code in the shop when getting anything, it is EvolvedJake, just like my channel name is, and it is underneath the webcam at all times. So the first thing is pretty straightforward and pretty simple. But I feel like this is getting overshadowed just because of the sheer amount of change in this update. And that is just going to be that you have unlimited stamina if you're sprinting with your pickaxe out. So this is probably a habit that you're going to want to build over time where, you know, if you know it's safe and there's not any enemies nearby, you want to probably take out your pickaxe if you're just traveling. That way you have unlimited stamina. But even if it isn't the most safe area or safe situation or 100% certain safety, it's not like swapping weapons or taking out your pickaxe takes an absurd amount of time in Fortnite. So most of the time, I'm probably going to want to be pulling this pickaxe out just to travel. And I feel like this is something that I haven't, necessarily built the habit with as well. Another huge change is going to be the way landing works. Instead of getting glider locked at a certain altitude, you're now able to detach from your glider and enter free fall. And so you can use this to kind of fine tune your drop and get the best drop possible if you didn't, get glider locked at the appropriate height. So using this to drop down to get a better landing than other players around you will be huge. But also, once you're close enough to the ground, you can just detach and land in a roll. Getting this to the point where you don't take fall damage probably will take some playing around with, but you're going to want to try to master this new landing and figure out how it works and what works for you, because getting a better landing than other players gives you a huge advantage in the early game. And one thing that I think a lot of players might be surprised by is that you can free fall into water and you won't take any fall damage if the water is deep enough, which probably isn't too surprising if you're used to Fortnite. But one thing that you might not know is you can also do this in bushes. So the large bushes that are around the map, if you fall into them, you don't take fall damage. And so you can free fall into these bushes and you'll be fine. No fall damage. You'll be, perfectly safe. And so depending if there's any bushes around where you enjoy landing or right next to where you enjoy landing, you can, drop into the bush and maybe get a bit faster of a landing. So it really depends on the POI you're landing at, but also throughout the mid game, because glider redeploy is just a constant feature we have at all times now. You can just pull your glider out if you're falling, or the rifts that are around the map that allow you to travel. You might be in a situation where, you rifted or your glider redeployed and you want to just drop down safely and quickly, and doing this over a bush will protect you, or a body of water will protect you, and you'll avoid that fall damage. So this might not always be the biggest deal off spawn, but it is something you can use at several stages throughout the game, because rifts are an aspect of the game and glider redeploy is a part of the game. I said earlier that getting a better landing than those around you is going to be a huge advantage, and this has always been the case in pretty much every BR, because then you'll be like the first player to get weapons and you could potentially punish the enemy before they have a weapon to fight with. Now in Zero Build, you do start with the starting pistol, but the starting pistol is pretty trash in my opinion. It doesn't have the greatest damage. It has like pretty low damage and mid fire rate, but it has terrible accuracy. The bloom on this is pretty significant, and you don't drop with very many bullets. You just have one mag. And because the accuracy isn't the greatest and the other stats also aren't the greatest, getting a kill off spawn with just one mag isn't going to be guaranteed. So I don't think you should be forcing fights with this starting pistol. Use it just as more of like a backup. I think a lot of people saw starting weapon and they're like, okay, I'm just going to land on people and force a fight. I think it's pretty likely that goes poorly for you. So I don't want to fight with the starting pistol if possible. And if I get like a pump shotgun off spawn and that's my only weapon, it's nice to have this pistol as some sort of follow-up. But I don't have much confidence in this pistol, and I don't try to force fights with it because I think it is pretty terrible. I think a lot of people kind of overestimated how good this would be. Speaking of pistols, the tracer pistols were added to the loot pool, and a lot of people don't like this because it puts you in first person, and it can be weird to use in a fight, going from like shooting your shotgun in third person and then swapping to this and then kind of doing that back and forth like how we typically would with Fortnite fights. So when it comes to these tracer pistols, I think I will be using them a good amount, but not even necessarily as a weapon. I just think they're an incredibly good mobility item, because when you have this equipped, you have dashes that you can do while using it. If you press your jump button in the direction you want to go while in air, your character will do a dash like to the direction you're going. And you can actually use this to completely avoid fall damage. And you can chain this with bunny hop. So if you do a dash forward and then land in a slide and then jump again and then land in a slide, you'll carry that momentum the dash gave you forward, and you can travel around the map incredibly quickly. So even if you don't like these as a weapon and you don't enjoy like fighting with them, having it as a mobility option to reposition or get away from fights or get where you need to be quickly, I think is going to be really effective. So even just not a weapon, the tracer gun is really good movement. And even if you want to use this in fights, I think the tracer can just be a pretty good distraction in team game modes, because you can be very erratic and very difficult and very annoying to deal with. And this can waste time and allow your teammates to kind of open up on the space that you're creating. So just being a nuisance with these tracer guns can be pretty helpful in those team game modes. And I believe this is kind of similar to how tracer is in Overwatch at times. One thing that you do need to keep in mind, though, if you're going to be using this as movement, is that the dashes for the pistol only recharge while you have it equipped. So the dashes will be kind of in the center of your screen. There's those like lines when you have the pistols out. If you don't have the pistol equipped, the dashes don't recharge. So if you use all 3 dashes and then swap to something else and then go to use it later, you won't have dashes yet. And that can be really problematic if you're using this as like your, bad situation mobility. If you start getting shot at and your habit is to go to these pistols and then dash away, that can work well, but you just got to make sure that you keep your dashes charged up throughout the course of the game, because if you swap to it and nothing is available, that's going to be really problematic for you. There are these Overwatch crates around the map, especially in the new Overwatch kind of themed areas, and from opening these, you get unique items. Like there's a new exotic overclocked or overcharged pulse rifle. There is the kinetic blade you can get from these. I believe the guardian shield is in there. There's a lot of different items you can get from these Overwatch crates. And so if you like using those items, you're probably going to want to prioritize areas that have these Overwatch crates available for you. So if you just wondered how people got that stuff, it was from the Overwatch crates. There also were 2 things that were already unlocked from the showdown progress. There's the Overwatch payload, which is a rift anomaly. If you go and exist in the area where the payload is, it will start to move and try to reach its destination. And then once it gets there, it will spawn several of these Overwatch crates for you. And then there also is an Overwatch dropship that can spawn at one of 4 helipads around the map. You can kind of see it when you're on the battle bus. And if you go here, there will be a solid amount of loot from this dropship, some Overwatch chests, and then also a good amount of barrels. You basically can get full shield from the barrels just from this dropship alone, so this won't be a bad landing spot and typically shouldn't be that contested. One of the new additions to the Zero build with this update is going to be the pocket items, and I know a lot of people have been struggling to access their pocket item because the bind for this is going to be your switch mode bind, and that's how you would typically pull out your blueprints to build. A lot of Zero build players unbound that because, they don't play builds. So you may need to go into your keybinds and then bind switch mode to some button, and then that will allow you to access your pocket item. When you use the pocket item, it goes on cooldown for a period of time after using it. The shockwave grenade has a 30-second cooldown, the med mist has a 35-second cooldown, and then the shield bubble has a 40-second cooldown. You start off with shockwave grenades, and then you can buy one of the other pocket items and swap it out at the vending machines around the map, the miscellaneous vending machine, not the weapon or heal one. The shockwave pocket item is definitely my favorite so far, and one kind of improvement shockwaves have over the overdrive grenades is that you can use it to break through structures and break walls. So if you have an enemy camping inside a building, you can shockwave through the wall and catch them off guard, and this has been one of my favorite things to do with shockwaves ever since they were added. This also makes it a better item for forcing enemies off of cover, because you could overdrive nade people out of bushes or from behind structures, but depending on the angle or what's going on there, it might be hard to force them out. But since the shockwave grenade breaks the structure, forcing people out of cover using shockwave grenades is something that works really well. So using your pocket item, shockwave, not only is it good mobility, but you can use shockwaves offensively in those ways, and that is something that you will probably catch a lot of players off guard with. When you force someone out of cover and break their cover and then just start beaming them, it makes the fight pretty hectic for them. The shield bubble pocket item obviously will create a protective bubble around you, and things outside the bubble can't really hit you. This, I feel like, isn't the greatest in solos, but in like team game modes, when you have really stalematey fights and people potentially shooting you from multiple directions, it can be really helpful in that aspect. Or you can put it on a car. So rotating around with cars is nice, but a lot of times people just mag dump your car, and it can actually get destroyed pretty quick, especially in team game modes. If you like using cars a lot, maybe having somebody in your team run the shield bubble, that way they can throw it on the car, will create like a protective rotate for you. and help you kind of get around in the end game without getting focused as much. And then the same is going to be true with the med mist. Obviously, you could throw this down and heal everybody in the area. That works really good in team game modes. But another thing about this that works well is when you stack it with other heals, because if you're really weak and then throw down the med mist and start drinking big pots, you're going to be getting shield and white health at the same time, which will really help you out. And the staff from Mercy will heal multiple players at a time as well. So you could throw this med mist down and use the staff, and you will be healing really quick from that combined aspect. And the staff also combines pretty well with movement. When you have this equipped, you kind of have a floatier in-air movement, and this could be good for, you know, maintaining that momentum you have from using your mobility items. You can also use this to avoid fall damage if needed, and I'm sure as time goes on, people using the staff well with mobility will be something that gets pretty difficult to deal with. So if you like carrying the staff just for heals or to heal your teammates already, combining it with movement can also be pretty helpful. In this update, Fortnite changed the porta bunkers to these new brick bunkers, and they are common, and you can only carry 2 per inventory slot. Doesn't stack to 4, but you can actually still stack these on each other. So if you throw it down like kind of the center top part, they will stack on top of each other, and you can use this to create a kind of better base and catch a lot of players, or get like height advantage on players. This is something that is really nice to do in like late game situations because you'll have height on other players. The past bunkers had tires on them, and those no longer are a thing, so it's a bit easier to push these. You don't have to mantle a specific spot. You also don't have to worry about players hiding in the bottom as much. You can still get down there because there's doors, but the old bunkers kind of had a slit in the middle, which helped with that. You can use these to break walls and stuff too. If you throw it at a building that somebody's camping in, you can kind of break the wall around them and make a way in for yourself. And if you catch somebody under those stairs, the fact that there's no longer a slit under it, it's going to make it much harder for them to get out and actually create a situation where you've full pieced them in zero build mode. So catching enemies off guard by like just throwing it at them, or throwing it in a building they're in to break it, or throwing it in a bush they're in to kind of break it and contain them under, can be something that can be really helpful. The exotic pulse rifle is an item that you can get from the Overwatch crates, and this was actually already nerfed. So Fortnite reduced the fire rate on this pulse rifle from 8 to 7, so it'll fire a little bit slower, and that really hurts the DPS of the item. Personally, I'm surprised they did this because it wasn't an item I was really enjoying that much anyways. The accuracy of it makes it harder to use at longer ranges. It has a good amount of bloom, but also makes it pretty difficult to use in air, which is a type of fight that happens a lot this season, or when enemies are using mobility to get away from you, which I'm sure if you play zero build, you know, is something that happens a lot. So I wasn't the biggest fan of this pulse rifle anyways, but it has already been nerfed. If you really like the tracer pistols and you've been struggling to find them, you can actually purchase them at the rivalry board sometimes. So the weapon that's sold there can vary from board to board, and it's just random game to game. But there are times where the tracer pistols can be sold in the rivalry board, so that might be something that you want to check on if you really like using these pistols and you haven't been able to find one from looting your initial POI. Or you're playing team game modes and everybody wants it. And another thing that was updated with the rivalry boards in this update is going to be that in the heal section of the rivalry board, there's a chance for overdrive nades to be sold. So that's pretty nice. And you get 4 overdrive nades for a single purchase. So again, if you're struggling for mobility after looting your POI, you might prefer other things to the overdrive grenades, but this is much better than having to rely on only your shockwave pocket item. So if you're desperate for mobility or want more overdrive grenades, consider checking out the rivalry board. The Flowberry Mist Grenade was vaulted in this update, so it's not in the regular loot pool, but there is a chance for it to spawn in the heal vending machines. And so if you like using the Flowberry Mist, this could be, you know, a way for you to get it and purchase it. This is a really good team healing item, and if you, like I talked about before with combining heals with the Med Mist, you throw it on the Med Mist and the Flowberry Mist, you're healing both your team's white health and shield really quickly, and you're going to get, you know, healthy really fast and be ready to fight a team, especially in like an in-game third-party situation. That could be something that really turns the tides of a fight in your favor. So that is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys found this to be helpful, informative, or interesting. I know some of these topics I've talked about in videos already, but the way content goes, not everybody sees every video, especially when there's a big new update like this. There's a lot of people searching for content, and this might be the first thing they've seen of me. So if I'd like completely ignored topics that I've already talked about, the video would kind of be incomplete. And hopefully you learned something and didn't have to watch a whole bunch of different videos to kind of get this information. So if you guys enjoyed this, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you would like to see more. Comment down below which tip you found to be most helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.